Had a little listen to his podcast, huh?
Dude, it's educational. Besides, I've been wanting to listen to this one.
Welcome to Idling in the Impala, a podcast by and for lovers of supernatural and the fanfiction it inspires. I'm Kasey.
I'm Sandra, and we are lucky to chat with another fanfic author who has contributed over 100 supernatural stories to the archive of our own library for the fandom to enjoy and consume for well over a decade. Known as Monicawoe on AO3 and Tumblr, Monica is a self-proclaimed multi-fandom writer, and her supernatural corner of fanfiction is just as varied and explorative. But Kasey may have found their kindred fic spirit when it comes to Sam and the question, what if it just bends a little? We can't wait to talk about her writing, supernatural, and love of Sam, the boy king of hell. So big thanks, and welcome to the podcast, Monica.
Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
It's so awesome to have you. We were talking just a little bit beforehand about how we came about and learned about all things Monica from Quickreaver, Chris.
Yes,
and
I love her.
seeing your collaborations and things, just like we've got to talk to her. We'll see if she's interested. And you were, and we're so grateful. And we are going to try not to gush too much, but I will say, just handful of stories that I've read, I was just totally taken by your writing style and your way to just encapsulate the characters. And I know we'll get into that more, but I just wanted to say, yeah, thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, glad to.
I'm nodding along like anyone can see me. I'm like, yes, 100%. Also taken by your writing, and make no secret of being a Sam lover. So.
Thank you. No, Quickreaver had a lovely time on the podcast and enthusiastically said that I should do it as well. And she has been, my companion in supernatural fandom basically from the get-go. So if she says do it, I say okay.
Oh, good.
Hey.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We're always glad to hear that. I'm going to start with a basic question, and then I think it's just going to go off the rares. When exactly did you get into supernatural?
So I had to look this up, actually, but I believe, so I know for a fact that I started watching live with Mystery Spot of all episodes.
Okay.
And what had happened is I had seen it kind of off and on my periphery, but never a whole episode. Like because back in the olden days, things were just on television.
Right.
And so, yeah, so I had caught an episode. I think I actually caught part of Faith at one point and was like, oh, I should check this out at some point. And then when I was at the gym, I saw with no sound the season 2 finale. And was immediately taken by Sam. I'm like, who is this one? And was very and there's some kind of demon thing and something with blood and all of these things that I love were clearly involved. So I was like, all right, I need to check this out. And then I found Mystery Spot was playing. I watched it. And I said to my husband, we need to watch this together. And so we both watched that episode and he said, I'm on board. And we started with season 1 and mainlined it over the course of, I think, 2 to 3 weeks.
Wow.
And got caught up. And so my first live cliffhanger was season 3, which, as you can imagine, was really something. We really, the season 3 cliffhanger was just fantastic. And I will say briefly, I miss that a lot. And I kind of hate the modern model of dropping a full season at once, not to mention a full series, because there was something so amazing about having to wait week for week. And for a writer, especially for a fandom writer, the pause in between episodes, trying to figure out what was coming next. And for me, like the little teaser preview at the end of the episode was so exciting because you get these kind of like little flashes of what was coming and trying to like parse the plot from that little bit was one of my favorite things to do. And we used to do a lot of speculating in the early days of fandom, right? Based on those trailers. Yeah. And I feel like that stopped being a thing kind of as the nature of TV changed. So I do miss that a lot. I remember the season 3 hiatus being particularly exciting because we were like, oh my gosh, what's happening? And then also obviously there was the writer's strike, which changed the season and the whole nature of season 4, apparently. That was when I started.
The summer hiatus was always like a big deal thing, I feel like, for a lot of shows. I actually was talking to my brother about this because I was like, I know you don't remember this. Or I had said something like, we were talking about TV and about how, there are shows now that like you binge, but then you have to wait like almost a year and a half for the next season. I said, I remember, like Who Killed JR? And he's like, I know that, but I don't know why I know that. And I had to explain it to him. I said, it was just this thing, like, you got to think about who was going to do what. Was he, did he survive? Or like what the heck was going on? And I know with Supernatural.
Is that from Dallas?
Yes.
Yeah, that's from Dallas.
I know with Supernatural, from what I've heard from the fandom, the summers were like, did they call them hiatus or something like that?
That's right. Hiatus, yeah.
Because that was a thing where you guys would just be like waiting. And then like, but also like, trying to figure out what the heck is going to happen. It was all this build up. And you just don't get that anymore, because even if you have a show that you binge, that then you have to wait a year and a half, you kind of just forget about it. There's no, there's no like, roller coaster of like, here we're going up, we're going down. It's just like, and then you just wait till it maybe comes out again and you get a recap. And it's just like, so yeah, there's something really missing. Yeah.
3 months that's kind of the sweet spot. I'm a spoiled little millennium baby. So I don't like, nothing that I watched had that kind of break. And by the time I was getting into the shows that did have that kind of break when they were airing, they were all on DVD on Netflix. So, like the season 3 cliffhanger lost a lot of its power when I know I've got 5 of the DVDs sitting on the shelf. Like, it's probably going to be all right.
The first cliffhanger I remember distinctly, I'm dating myself here, but as a kid, was the Star Trek The Next Generation, the cliffhanger where Picard was taken by the Borg. And that was, I wasn't even really like, I didn't, wasn't aware of fandom per se, but there were other people in my class who were like, oh my God, did you see? Like, what's gonna happen? That was the talk of my classroom that day. I remember that. When we came back to school.
The whole water cooler thing is no longer a thing anymore. And it's kind of, it's so weird that just in a couple generations, how that's just been lost. And I think, I really do think that TV is going to try to get back to that, because I feel like they're seeing that this isn't really working, I think, the way that they thought. So it's funny how I think some stuff is going to be retained and maybe recycled and tried again. And, just how do we get back into that episodic little bit of cliffhangers, but not to the point where you drive people crazy and you're like, no, I can't believe that this is happening. I'm just,
I mean, I love cliffhangers. I say the more cliffhangers, the better, but
no, resolution. I have to know.
No, just
no. Have you ever watched?
For a writer, it's catnip. I mean, for me, it's catnip, because then I can go in so many different directions and I won't be proven wrong.
Did you watch the show The Big Bang Theory with Sheldon Cooper?
No.
Okay, well, there's an episode in that, and I find like I watched the whole show and it got crap after like season 4, like most of them do, unfortunately. But there is an episode in that where Sheldon is like, he saved the last episode of a season ready for the next, and they're like going through the like TiVo or the DVR deciding what to delete, and he was like, I can't delete this, I'm waiting for the next season. And Leonard goes, oh no, it's been cancelled. And he's like, what? what do you mean it's been cancelled? And he like starts phoning like the TV execs and the writers and things like that, demanding, first of all, that they bring the show back because he needs a resolution. And then he finally gets hold of someone that tells him what would have happened in the final season. And he was like, well, that was awful, and I'm glad you cancelled it.
Well, see, that's the thing, though. There's some, I mean, we won't go on too much of a tangent, but there's some shows that I think are special to me literally only because they were cancelled after one season without being resolved, because there have been a couple like that. And in some cases, the writers actually did note what was going to happen. I was like, well, that's stupid. I'm very glad that that you didn't have season 2 in that case, because the fandom speculation was much better than whatever this is. So
I think so. Kasey, I'm going to let you ask your question.
Oh, I wonder what the answer to this question will be. So, if you had to pick gun to your head, who's your blorbo? Are you a Dean Blorbo person or a Sam Blorbo person? I think
that's obvious from anyone who's read my fics. I'm a Sam girl to the bone. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Can I just say as well, it's taken me until like just now to understand the answer that you put in the document. So we won't be sharing this document, but this question doesn't get outlined in the document that gets sent to guests to come on the show. It just says Kasey's question. And Monica's put underneath it, antlers are the closest thing to a crown, assuming it's the moose question. And that took me so long. I literally just got it now. I was like, oh, the Boinking. Oh,
that's right.
Yep.
That's right. So the antlers.
The antlers. Yeah.
Yes.
Were you in for Sam, like, from the off, or
from the moment I saw and heard him? The voice is a crucial thing for me, and his voice really got to me where it was in Mystery Spot, which I told you was the first one that I ever saw live. And there's a lot of changes, right, to his voice. He has this really broad range of emotion in that episode in particular, because of what he's going through. And that did me in from the get. I was like, oh my gosh, look at this one. And also his story, which the more I got into it, once I went back to season 1, I was just like, oh my goodness, like he's very relatable on a number of levels, from his place in the family, his wanting to find his own way, and then later on, as it gets more and more, like, I think you've touched on this somewhere in your questions also, but there's something about feeling monstrous with him that really struck a chord with me. And that's one of the reasons that season 4 is in fact my happy place. As bizarre as that might seem, it's really, it to me is kind of so core to Sam. And I know that the writers were kind of potentially heading in a different direction before the writer's strike hit. But I love the way that his tragedy unfolds, because he failed. And unfortunately, that is very relatable, right? It's like there's certainly something to be said for stories where the hero succeeds, but somebody failing when they really, really didn't want to is very relatable. And him having to kind of deal with the fallout of that and trying to cope and trying to apologize for something that he can't undo. And that guilt kind of eating him from the inside out. And then this another version of being monstrous and embracing it to some degree, which I will tell you that the first episode of season 4, when he first uses his powers, I legit had my arms in the air cheering.
Hey!
Ecstatic. I was so happy. And I also, I love Ruby. I really do. I think the relationship, both Rubies, I will say, season 3 Ruby and season 4 Ruby, I found fascinating for very different reasons, but I thought that was brilliant. I mean, I think her character is amazing. And I do think she had genuine emotions for him, but I do also obviously know that she was manipulating him. But that whole thing, watching it unfold, is fascinating to me. And him kind of struggling for autonomy over and over and over again. And that's the key, that's the crux of it for me, and why I'm such a Sam girl, right? Is his ongoing fight for autonomy and feeling like he is in control of himself, which unfortunately he's often not, right? So it's kind of like an ongoing theme. And also the reason that I had to eventually bail on the show, because I couldn't deal with it anymore. I was like, nope, this has gone too far. But seasons 1 through 5 really, really had my heart. I really loved them.
So just before we jump into like the show and the seasons and stuff, I'm just gonna hop back to Jared's vocal range. Do you have like a favorite Sam voice that he'd like a favorite, like, is it like grumpy Sam or happy Sam or like whiny puppy dog? Like, what's your favorite Sam voice and why is it Dom Sam?
I mean, yes, exactly. No, it's when he gets low, right? Or I should say when he gets threatening, which doesn't necessarily coincide with having a low voice, where it's when you know that he will do whatever it takes to do what he has decided to do. That's the one that gets me deep. But then also that he can be, it is the range. It's not just one thing, right? Because it's also the like quivering voice when he's sad,
and
like
it's sad and
it's just the whole range.
I call it the Dom voice because there's no other earthly way to describe that. But I'm thinking very specifically of the season 1 episode where he gets into it with John.
Yeah,
there's Jared there, and he's all of fucking 23.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
The voice, that comes from his fucking stomach.
That's right. No, that is
so
in fact the
deep.
voice. And it's funny because you're right. It is in the scene with John. But the first time I remember reacting to it viscerally was actually in the episode with the truck crash, right? Which was the season 1 finale, I think, where he screams Dean's name, but it's also this like really low kind of growling scream, and I was like, oh dear.
Yeah.
That's
right. No, I hold a lot of love for that episode with John anyway, because I'm a really huge fan of the way he like from a story perspective, Sam to John. I'm a huge fan of the way he stands there and goes, "You did this, own what you did." But then also, I know Jared wasn't a young actor, like a new actor. He'd been acting for a number of years, but I think there's some balls to kind of stand there and pull that voice out to somebody, you know, significantly like a decade older than you, who is playing your father. And I think the fact that he was able to reach for that and grab it is incredible. I've completely forgotten my point. Where the fuck was I going with that?
We start thinking about awesome.
Sam. But no, in Mystery Spot, like, you know, the whole range showcase, right? It's like he goes back and forth, and then with well, I guess at that point he was still the trickster, right? But where he says please in like the softest, most gentle voice ever, you know, and in the same episode having gone like from one extreme to the other, that was really where that kind of juxtaposition, because the only thing I can think of is where it's after Dean gets hit by the car and he's telling him about it the next day. And Dean's like, did it look cool? And he just goes, you peed yourself. Exactly.
It's really gruff. But I'm like, oh, baby. I have no idea where I was going with the John episode. But the other instance of that Dom voice Jared manages to pull out is in season 7. It's / fiction. I think it's in season 7. And they're in the bank. And it's Leviathan, Sam.
Yeah,
but he pulls out that gun and tells everyone to get on the ground, and I'm like, fuck. Somebody, I require medical assistance right now. Jesus Christ. Yeah,
he does it several times actually throughout the show. We that would be worth researching, I think. Yeah.
Oh, I volunteer as tribute. That will be such a tragedy. Oh no.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm going to start asking people that. What is your favorite Sam voice, and why is it the Dom voice? Why is it that one?
It's a good question.
It's going to fall apart when I speak to Dean fans, though. They're going to be like, what are you talking about? And
then you can ask about what your favorite Dean voice, and then you can just see what you get for that. I think you'll get similar. You might get some similar
I was gonna be really cruel and be like, he has as many voices as he has haircuts.
That's
very
cruel.
Very mean and
that's
very much
mean.
not true. Jensen is an incredible actor. And again, the range of soft and sweet and Sammy to that, you know, that sort of bellow of Sam's name.
We were just talking about that in the Discord too, about how like, you know, the actors bring so much nuance to the characters that I don't think Supernatural is very subtle about, but I think the actors are able to bring those things to the table that make you resonate with the character on a lot of levels. And I think that's pretty impressive, I think, for the show. Yeah. And what they've done with that. Well, you answered my why, Sam. So that takes care of that question as well, because you were just all about that. We appreciate that. I know you've talked a little bit, you wrote a little bit down about thoughts on the show. We've kind of like developed theories, and I think Kasey's probably the best one to sort of like go with this now, because you've basically said like seasons 1 to 5 had your heart, seasons 6 to 9 broke it, and the beginning of 10 made you bail. Yep. Kasey, did you want to like ask our couple, like, because we're getting theories the more we talk to certain fans.
What was it about 10 that made you go, nope?
Oh my gosh. So there's 2 elements to it. The one that's easier to sum up is that they completely, in my opinion, flubbed Demon Dean so badly. So badly. I mean, the most grievous scene, in my opinion, is one that a lot of people actually love. But like the fact that he was, you know, chasing Sam through the bunker and didn't taunt him with demon blood is unforgivable.
Yes.
Unforgivable. I do not understand why with a hammer, why a knife pressed to the throat. It would have been so easy. I don't understand why they didn't do that. And Dean 100% would have gone there as a demon. It makes no sense to me. That was
Casey.
That was just insulting, quite frankly. I was insulted to my core. It was like, nope, that's it. I'm done. Because I had given them, I felt like, many, many chances to redeem themselves when they were, quite frankly, already losing me in seasons 8 and 9. But in 9 in particular, it just got too upsetting. And then I thought, okay, if they're going to go this route with Demon Dean, I will see how they do it. I'm sure there will be something, but no, they flubbed it so badly. I said, nope, I can't do it. And I bailed. Yeah. But no, what really did it for me, you know, where they broke my heart was the fallout from Gadriel, the possession. I mean, it was just like, I thought initially the way that I kind of read it to myself was that part of Dean becoming a demon was that, right? Was that he had willfully taken Sam's autonomy again, had him possessed against his will, and that this was part of the fallout. And I actually accepted that as like, you know, okay, as much as I hated this whole arc, as horrible as it was for him to do that to Sam, if there's some kind of consequence, you know, and they're going to talk about this at some point, you know, then maybe I can keep going. But they didn't. And in fact, a lot of elements of Demon Dean to me, quite frankly, were kind of laughable. Like it wasn't done seriously enough for my liking. And it was also season 9, I want to say 8 actually is where this started, but a lot of the things that the writers used to take seriously, that for serious nerds like me were like a big deal, they started to be neglected and fall by the wayside. And I get that it's not important for everyone, but you may or may not know this, but if you go to the Supernatural wiki, one of the things I contributed was the translations of Enochian. And so what they used to do is they used to actually pay attention to the Enochian that they were speaking on the show, the spoken Enochian, sorry, I should say. And that the spoken and the written Enochian went to crap in season 8, and then it just got worse and worse.
Interesting.
And so what that told me is that the writers that were taking over no longer felt that was important, or that they were being rushed to a degree where they didn't, you know, have time. But there were, I made a post at one point with Abaddon, I think it was, where there had been like demons that left graffiti or something in Enochian writing. And it was not only, was it not Enochian, it was literally just letter substitution into English, but it was misspelled on top of that, where like if it had been intentional, sure, that would have been funny, but nobody was pointing it out, you know. And I got irritated by that. I was like, listen, this was one of the things that you had been doing consistently well, was this little bit of world building. That's great to somebody like me, you know, where I'm like looking for this kind of stuff and I'm enjoying it. And it's like, oh no, they've stopped caring. Right. So that was part of it too. I think they just they and nothing felt serious anymore. The demons and the angels became interchangeable. The villains weren't really given enough weight. And a lot of the stories to me felt pretty rehashed, and not in a way where they could have pulled, for example, the whole arc with Castiel and becoming God. There were a lot of similarities there, right? With like Sam going dark side and everything. And they didn't tie that together very well in a way that I feel like they could have. And likewise, obviously, with Demon Dean, there could have been a lot more conversations and intentional parallels. And instead, it was just kind of ignored. Like the past was ignored. And I didn't like that at all.
No, that's all those things are totally valid. I think that's so. Whenever people say that they bail around 10 and we go, okay, why 10? And they're like, Demon Dean was a clusterfuck. It doesn't matter whether they're like, I'm a Sam blobber or a Dean blobber or like a vibro or like whatever. They're like, Demon Dean was a clusterfuck. And I agree.
Right.
It was.
And the problem is that I really did, just to be clear, I absolutely loved Dean early on. I loved their relationship. I mean, who doesn't, right? What early season Supernatural fan doesn't love both of them? 100%. And that's kind of what was really breaking my heart, was that at the beginning of season 6, also, quite frankly, it was when he punches Sam into unconsciousness, right? Where he's soulless. And I'm like, you've already knocked him out. You don't need to keep going. And that was where I really started to actively dislike Dean. And it flipped into hate slowly but surely. And I didn't want to hate Dean. I didn't want to, but they kept doubling down on him being flat out abusive, quite frankly. Like, Sam takes the car without asking and he gets punched in the face after having a concussion. What is that? Like, that's not that's terrible. And so at that point I was really like, Sam should leave him and never come back.
So I'm actually on the back of that then, because I'm on record as, and we'll get to it, I'm on record as having a real big fucking problem with the end of 8. But
I understand.
On the back of that, again, similar kind of answers when you go, okay, why'd you quit at 10? And they're like, 1 to 5 was perfect.
Right.
But for me, season 5, if I'd have been Sam Winchester, I would have burned it all to the fucking ground. He spends that whole season, Dean, Bobby, the Angels, everybody being like,
him.
You're not strong enough. Nope, you can't do it. Nope. Like, even like Dean out and out says it, like, you're not strong enough to do this. I would have burned it to the ground. I would be like, fuck y'all, apocalypse time. The whole thing. But then it was like
preaching to the choir, yes.
But then you're like, season 5 had my heart, and I'm like, but why? It was
seasons 1 through 5. Well, no, and I'll tell you why, because you're exactly right, and that's why I have so many fics set in that sweet spot in season 5 where he should have said, "Fuck all y'all," and left and done his whole thing. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, but I'll mention it here. So one of my fics on his head a crown is one that it took me forever to write, and it was spurred on by one of these teaser trailers, right? And so that was one of those where I took it as like, what if they did split up and they didn't reunite right after 5-3? Because that episode I actually really liked. I thought that episode, the Good God, Y'all, it was great. And also, I mean, I think like most other Sam goals, I actually really did love Lucifer Sam in the end. Was fantastic. I mean, and I actually love that suit. Also, I will go on record as saying I love the suit. I love the whole look.
You're losing me, Monica. You're losing me. I'm gonna take away moose holding privileges in a minute.
But no, so what happened to my brain when I saw the teaser trailer for that, which I don't know if you ever saw it, but the teaser trailer for that was amazing. It had the Oh Death song that plays during Death's entrance was throughout the whole trailer. And so all we saw in that little teaser trailer of Sam was him dressed in white, and you saw the little, the foot on Dean. And so that trailer, what happened in my head is after we had seen Good God, Y'all, and there was that amazing scene with Sam and War, which is one of my, I think, favorite scenes in the whole show, quite frankly. There's something just so amazing about that whole dialogue, the whole setup. And War says to Sam, I have brothers. I've got 3 brothers. We're going to have so much fun together. And, you're my poster boy. So in my head, I went, oh, Sam is one of the horsemen. And whether or not you're aware of this, so the way that you define the horseman, depending on what text you read, sometimes pestilence is conquest. And so on his head a crown is the story of Sam as the horseman conquest. And it takes a very different direction.
Gotcha.
So here's the thing, Monica. Me and Sandra did sort out what we were going to read, because she was like, I've read this and I've read this and I've read this. And I was like, okay, I've read some other things and I want you to. So I said to Sandra, okay, I'll read the ones you've read. I want you to read Best Self.
I love Best Self.
What happened was Sandra went and read Best Self, but what happened was I only managed to read Still Driving, because I did not have enough brain for On His Head a Crown and
that's fine.
What was the other one? His Soul to Keep. Yes. So I have them open. I'm going to get there. That premise is fucking awesome, and I want it. But I do. But I didn't.
You might enjoy it if you were so disappointed by season 5. You might like that one, because that's definitely what I wanted from season 5.
Like, see, the thing is, I could like, I'm here going, I don't understand why everyone goes season 1 to 5 is perfect. Season 5, I would have burned it to the ground, but I still fucking love it. I love it because I love the the resilience.
Yes.
Everybody is telling him, you're weak, you can't do this, you're not strong enough, and he's like, fuck all y'all, but not in a like, I'll burn it down.
Right.
He's like, fuck, I'll do it. And I know that comes from the guilt of fucking up in 4, but I just like I'm in awe of the strength of the ability to go, everyone doubts me, but I'm going to show all of y'all.
Yeah, no, exactly. And there's a lot of pieces of season 5 that are amazing, right? Where I think you take individual scenes out, and then obviously like My Bloody Valentine. I mean, to be clear, I have a mile high vampire fetish. And also blood drinking in general. So like that episode wins anyway.
So
because of that. But
I was already, when you were talking about 10 and you were like, they didn't even bring up the demon blood.
Exactly.
And I was like, just gonna be like, just shuffle an AO3 link into chat, be like, I think you'll like this. And I definitely am, because I wrote a series. It's not finished, but it's okay where it is for now, but I'm going to go back and finish it.
Oh yeah,
and
please.
It's called Demonic Junkies.
Excellent. Yeah,
and
I like
while
it
it is set as an AU for after 10, after Dean in 10, the actual inspiration for it came from My Bloody Valentine, and it's not the blood drinking, although it is a little bit the blood drinking. It's there's a lot of blood drinking. Irrelevant. It's when he's chained up in the bathroom, and he's sweating,
of course,
and it's all in the hollow of his neck, and he's just sweating, and like he looks
those
sick.
Pipes are just so puny. I mean, those pipes would have just not held, right? I mean,
yeah.
That's another thing.
And like junkies, it's an albatross around my neck now. Like I am the ancient mariner for real. This is a fucking albatross around my neck. But it started out as a one shot called Blood Junkie that was just, what if Dean got Sam addicted to his blood? What would Sam do?
Exactly.
And then my brain was like, well, we've got to know where it starts. And so I went back and I wrote the first part of it, like where Sam gets Dean to the bunker and how that all goes down. And then I was like, well, I need an intermediary. So then there's a second thing. And then we get to Blood Junkie, which is now third. And then I couldn't leave them there. So now it's become this fucking saga of like curing Dean of being a demon. And where does that, like, it's Wincest, I will say that.
Right.
So if Wincest isn't your bag, like I totally understand if you don't want to read it, but like it's developed into this, this really deep kind of exploration of like trauma and consent and the absolute definition of what if it just bends a little, like how far can you twist something before it is not what it was anymore. But that the whole premise for that came from My Bloody, and he's all sweaty and he looks sick.
That seems amazing.
He's all sweaty.
Yeah.
He's all sweaty.
It is.
It's very sweaty. It's true.
It is quite a journey that Kasey takes you on in Junkie. So I think you will. I think you will enjoy it. And
I mean, also just to be clear, like it's it being such a Boinking fan, like the only options that I had in terms of fic from other writers were in fact all incest. Like I think I'm one of the few to attempt to write it gen. Most of the time, and that's really because for me the actual blood drinking is so much more exciting, right? Than
there's
explicit.
There's
it's
plenty
more explicit,
there's plenty of that, and it's very much so the kind of the demon that I make Dean is it's really focusing on the addiction part of it, and the kind of the way that addicts will trade their bodies for a fix, and and like it is like there is we're from Sam's POV for the most of it, so there is an established attraction there, but the sort of the main sex that happens at the beginning is not coming from that place. It is coming from a place of Dean saying, if you fuck me, you can have it. So but yeah, no, that was, he's all sweaty. I wish I had more to give you. I really do.
That's the key point. He was very sweaty. It's true. It's true.
But
also, if you enjoy him being sweaty and you haven't, you should really look at the art that I linked for Best Self, because that is
Yeah, no, I
this
like
one
that
was
one.
written. We used to have back on LiveJournal, we used to have this thing called Anti-Christmas, or Anti-Christmas, which was a celebration of Boinking Sam, right? Because they used to call him the Antichrist. And so one of the exchanges that we did, so we did more recently, I ended up running the event a few times in more recent years, the last few years we did it. And so you would put a prompt and then people would fill it. And somebody had put the AU Sam that's on screen for like 20 seconds, who's, got the black turtleneck and is
Kale Sam.
Kale Sam, exactly. And so this fic is Kale Sam and Boinking Sam, because it's me. And
it's beautiful.
I mean, look at this art that Quickreaver made again. She has spoiled me silly from the get-go. And this is just beautiful. I mean, yeah.
I wish I could be more articulate about My Bloody Valentine, because the exchange that he has, the exchange that Dean has with Pestilence and the exchange that Sam has with Pestilence, is so, it's
with Famine, you mean?
Famine,
later.
Oh no, Pestilence will grow. With Famine and the whole, Dean, you're not hungry because there's nothing to call hunger from, and Sam, like, you will never take too much. It's very darkly beautiful, and I really love that. But also, my brain just goes, he's so sweaty.
He is. It's
just when he's in the mirror, like
that. He is indeed very sweaty,
dabbing his face before they chain him up in the bathroom, and I'm like, he's so sweaty.
It's true.
Beautiful.
It's true.
No, actually, I have more to add to that. Wait your turn as well.
No, yes, well, wait your turn is obviously the best line, and that's also again the vocal range, right?
It's not quite Dom voice, but it's fucking real close. Wait,
he's all bloody. Qualifies. Yeah,
yeah. You know what? I'll give it. Yeah, I'll give it. He's all bloody and sweaty, and his hair's a mess. Oh,
that's such a good line. We were still learning how to make GIFs, at the time, and that was one of those scenes that I really worked hard to get into GIF form. But yeah, no, I wanted to. I mean, I don't know if I could just jump in here, but I wanted to just mention, because we were touching on Quickreaver, like the way that Big Bangs used to work on LiveJournal, if that's something we could talk about, because it's really,
of course, yeah.
It's just, you reminded me of it here by mentioning her. So I posted somewhere here, we did a long time ago, I wrote a fic called All Our Wrath and Cutting Beauty, and it was based on art that Quickreaver made. So you've heard of the reverse Big Bang, I assume?
Yes.
So the supernatural reverse Big Bang, so basically the artists post images and then the writers claim them. And this art, I saw it and I wanted to step into the art and just live there, right? So, like, if you see it, you'll understand why.
I'm looking at it now. I'm looking at it now.
It's stunning. Oh. It's stunning. And so the way that the reverse Big Bang used to work on LiveJournal is basically there would be a post with all of the offerings, right, with numbers, and then there would be a claims post that would open at a scheduled time, and the first person to claim the art would get it, right? Just like a Big Bang, only in reverse, because you're claiming the art. But the moderators for the reverse Big Bang were in Australia. And so what that meant is that the claims post for this particular art went live at 2 a.m. And I set my alarm and I got up at 1:30 and I wrote out, my claim form and copy pasted it and sat there and hit refresh like over and over and over until the post went live, and pasted it and hit enter. And what was amazing about this event was this was in the heyday, right? The peak of supernatural fandom. And so within the first 30 seconds, there were something like 300 comments, just to put it in perspective. Like, there were thousands and thousands of comments on this post. It was a huge event. And so, just to put it in perspective, kind of like how we used to do this back in the old days. And this was on LiveJournal, obviously, before all these events moved to AO3, which is much better built to handle this. AO3 is specifically made for events and for matching and all these things.
That's what Chris was saying. Yeah. I didn't even realize that that's like a thing. Yeah.
We moved Summer Gen over there, and we moved Antichristmas over there, and all this other stuff, because it's so much easier to do matches and to do claims. But back in the day, it was all manual, and it was all moderators going through these comments, and like manually assigning you. But yeah, that's how I got that art. I was like, I will not let anyone else get this artwork.
No, I'm fully with you there, because it's oh god, yeah,
it's beautiful.
The inspiration.
So what do you consider the heyday then? Because you said heyday. So what?
I mean, for me,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, for you.
I'm sure that it was also at its height before I joined.
Yeah, but for you, like, was it like the 2009, 2010?
Yeah, 2009 to 2011, I guess for me was like the height of the events, and then it did start to go. It started to, or I should say, it started to shift, right? Because the SDL fandom kind of took over a lot of events, and that's never been for me. And so, so then it also the season started becoming, more and more upsetting for a variety of reasons.
This is a part of our theory. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And then it really, when it lost me, right? And it happened to be that MCU fandom kind of found me at the time that I was exiting Supernatural. So I skipped over there and did a lot of MCU Stucky Fic for a while. And then I found Venom.
That's Captain America.
Yeah.
That's Captain America, Winter Soldier. Yeah.
Correct. And then Venom, which is still an OTP. Eddie and Venom were actually an OTP of mine from comics days back in the 90s. So I'm so happy that they're in movies. The Quickreaver, so what happened with Quickreaver with Chris, which was so incredible, is that I had written these fics in 2009 on LiveJournal, and out of nowhere, Quickreaver comes to me and says, "Hey, I really loved your story. Can I do an illustration for it?" I was like, "What? Of course!" That was my introduction to fandom, basically. like in terms of participatory fandom. And she made this incredible art that I have actually a mini gallery of her art hanging at home, because I have originals that she sent me. But so she did the art for Theosis, which was one of my first series of Boinking fics. And that came from another thing we used to do on LiveJournal, which was comment fic. And basically people would post prompts, and then you would just write a part of a fic in a comment, or sometimes a whole short fic. And, what I realized after writing a few of them was like, oh, this is a whole series. Like I should keep going, and it did. It turned into a whole series. So
it's amazing.
Yep.
It's awesome.
Yeah, but that's how she found me, and then we kind of found each other on exchanges and realized that we jived like very well, because we had very similar tastes. And so we worked together on multiple big bangs and would always claim each other whenever possible. Which was really fun. So we did, Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, she did incredible art for that one too. That was another, I think that was just the regular Big Bang, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, that was amazing.
No, I just going through it and just seeing, and then like you said, all the different artists that you have worked with, I think it's been, that's what I love about AO3 too, is it makes it so easy to find. Like once you can find, and you can see the evolution of an author, of an artist, and how they take hold of a fandom and kind of like just turn it into whatever their brain wants to spit out. And then the what ifs are just very, I think with your stuff especially, you were talking about it, and I did get a big sense of what if it bends a little. That's Kasey's mantra, and seeing how you would take, and we'll get into it more, but taking that little spark of what if and just running with it. And especially with Sam, it's just, it's really the horror aspect of it. Have you always been into the horror part of it?
Oh gosh, yes. Okay. I've been into horror probably my whole life.
Okay.
My mother raised me on old school Grimm, which originally really kind of frightened me, but then I guess
you got desensitized,
it ended up making me a horror fan. Yeah, exactly. In the long run, I watched some horror movies probably way too early. But they ended up, there was something so amazing to me about this visceral, like kind of bodily reaction that I had to these movies where I was like, oh, I kind of like that, and I when I was a teenager would just, again, dating myself, go to the Blockbuster and scoop up armfuls of horror movies and just like watch them all, and and the movies and the books, but the movies largely, really what I liked about horror is that it was a genre that had a lot of things that other things don't, and I kind of applied that to my fic writing too, where so horror, for one thing, had a lot more heroines, right? Like the final girl thing, although that's a little bit of a loaded term in a different way, but I mean, it really was something to see a girl, frequently a teenager, kind of fight and survive through the end. And something that comes up over and over again in horror is this whole theme of someone who doesn't have autonomy or who loses their autonomy fighting back. And sometimes becoming a monster in the process, but kind of owning that. And that's been a favorite thing of mine from the get-go. So that was something that I really liked.
I just can't think why you leaned over towards Sam. That's so interesting.
Exactly.
I can't think what you'd see in him if that's the kind of thing you go for.
Exactly. No, I mean, it was instantly there, right? All of the elements are there, and then also in season 4, obviously the blood drinking. So,
but then they just didn't pay it off. Then they just didn't. They were like, "We've set up all these pieces. It's a perfect chessboard," and then the cat came in and knocked the whole thing over. And you're like, "But my villain arc, but my villain arc, but my villain arc." Yeah,
that was exactly it. Then I was like, "Fine, I'll write my own.
I'm going to make my own villain arc with blackjack and hookers."
And I've written every variant of villain arc that I could possibly think of, and really enjoyed myself doing it. Yeah, and also I would argue he's not necessarily always a villain. Sometimes he just does what needs to be done. It's funny what I think in AO3. What's so funny to me is when people leave bookmarks on your works, right? And like summarizing them, and I love those. Sometimes I love those more than comments, but there were a couple times where people summarized them, and I was a little taken back, and then I was like, okay, that's fair, I guess, but like, so obviously I have themes that I love to write about having to do with autonomy, and sometimes maybe Sam is a little bit of a control freak, but I had someone put that in the summary, and I was like, yeah, okay, that's fair. But in the back of my head, I'm like, he's right though.
I mean, we got to be careful how long we kind of, how far we get into that. I don't think he's a control freak. I think he's just someone who is fucking done with letting other people say what's going to happen to him.
Exactly.
That a control freak does not make. That is just
right. No. In my particular fic, where he very much is.
Right, yeah.
But I still say he's right. So
yeah.
So there.
Oh goodness.
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to ask you just like real quickly, because I know you mentioned like I know you tend to write like a little bit of Jen, Sam, and Dean, but I also get like his soul to keep.
That's definitely.
It was just right there. Yeah,
adjacent, right?
It's right there. It's just not necessarily explicit. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's like, do you just tend to? Because again, I haven't read everything, but the sense that I get is that there's definitely more leaning of like the boys are soulmates in one shape, form, or another kind of a situation, and they're like
correct. Yeah, I find the tangled up emotional situation much more interesting, and just in general, it's not. I love that people write explicit fic. I think it's great that they do it, but it's not generally my cup of tea.
Right.
I like the tension more, and what I do like is explicit blood drinking, and and power imbalances and autonomy struggles and exploration of the monsters. Like those things to me are much more interesting, and are what I gravitate towards.
Gotcha.
Where
I've slid the link. I've slid the link for Demonic Junkies into the chat. That's going to be your bag like 1,000 times over.
Yay! Excellent.
Because for the first, like I said, there is an underlying attraction that Sam is desperately trying to keep to himself, but it is none of the sex in the first few. None of the sex in any of it is consensual, and it's all very much engineered and coerced and consent issues and there's a lot of blood drinking, and I just think you really enjoy it.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah. Unfortunately, see, I was setting it up to be like fucking Night of Hell Boinking, and then Dean came in and went, "I'm not doing this," and because I'm a fucking idiot, I gave him a voice. I could have just not. And then he came in and he was like, "No, I don't like this. I feel weird about this." And then, well, now it's what it is now. But at the start, that was Dean's intention at the start, and then.
Yeah, I think the few times I've written anything explicit, it's generally been Sam Ruby, obviously, and Sam Brady, who is also a huge ship of mine, even though like they don't exactly have a lot of screen time. But what ended up happening there is Quickreaver and I actually co-wrote. I think you obviously you know this from the episode you did with her, but she's a writer as well as being an incredibly good artist,
and it's amazing.
Amazing.
I was like
I'm
blown
an
away
awe of
when
the
I
talent.
started reading. Yeah.
How
and
dare
so
pick one.
we co-wrote the first time I ever co-wrote with anyone, and we co-wrote this longer fic called Burdens Doublefold, which was an AU of season 1 and season 2, which basically the premise is instead of Dean taking Sam from Stanford, Sam goes off with Brady. And Brady ends up essentially being like his Ruby, right? Only very early on. And it deals with the Azazel's children, Azazel's special children, and all that. So it's an alternate season 1 and season 2. And so as a result of that, I ended up being a hardcore Sam Brady shipper because I wrote this whole backstory, even though, you know, we got on screen was so very, very limited, but it was a really fun premise to play with. So I've written several Sam Brady fics, and I wish there were more of them. That's really an underrepresented pairing, I feel, in in supernatural fandom. Though there are a few other Sam Brady writers out there. I see you. I love you. Thank you. But not enough, I say. Yeah.
And the Sam Ruby too, like, you know, and I would assume that this would
love
be more
Sam Ruby
thing too, that if some people are, you know, maybe more about like, no, it's the boys and that's it, you know, that they might not be as open to that kind of an aspect of it. But I feel like you can't have supernatural without all of these other entanglements anyway, to sort of like eventually skirt them into a direction that you might see them going at some point. And Sam and Ruby, is all that manipulation and all that, but then you were talking about her as a character too, and she's so nuanced, and you just can't quite, like, you know there's something's up, but you can't quite figure out what it is. And then that, like,
exactly.
I think that was a really great moment too in season 4, where you know she's up to something, and then you get that little like, oh, I did it, I got it, like this is the thing I've been hoping for, kind of a situation. So I could see that being a very tangled, autonomous struggle that you would have between those two as well. So that's what I loved about, we'll get into it more, but His Soul to Keep. There's so many great things about it, but one of them too is the Sam Ruby connection situation that I just think is amazing. It's amazing.
Well, she was really fascinating in season 3, I thought, you know, and that was another thing where I was so disappointed that season 3 was cut short, because they had all these incredible setups. And clearly just ran out of time, right, to explore them all. But that was where I was very happy that Ruby, even though in a different vessel, was still in season 4, because I would have been very sad if she had been gone for good.
Absolutely. Kasey, did you want to ask, because I know we were talking about beginning of season 10 made you bail. Did you finish the show?
No. I did watch, I went back, I watched 2 things. Obviously, I watched the finale. I did watch the finale. And I watched, obviously, the Boinking scene in the dream sequence that he had when 15? He had his
Atomic Monsters,
which was great. You know, I mean, I think there are a few things that I would have wanted differently, but it was nice to have some genuine Boinking Sam on screen. So that did make me happy. Yeah, I did watch that, and then I watched, I forget what else. Obviously, the kill Sam scene, because I wanted to write this fic. I was like, okay, show me this. I did watch that, and I watched Sam shooting God, because that's my boy.
He's badass.
I that's about it. I couldn't do the full episodes anymore. Couldn't
so
do it.
interesting. It's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, we're like I said, we're kind of building up theories about certain situations, and I mean, we've kind of thought it through. The more I think we talk to a lot of like, you know, Sam Dean, and we were talking about the whole Destiel thing. It just seems like there's a certain sweet spot for a lot of viewers, and some people can finish and some people don't, and I just find it interesting, or where some people start the show, because some people don't necessarily start at the beginning. If you're a Destiel or you've heard about it, some people might start at season 4, and it's just like it's very,
that makes no sense to me.
Yeah, but it's very interesting, right? Like it's just like how much they can sort of like go along with canon, and then they're like, no, I can't anymore. And I find that interesting.
Exactly.
I think kind of theory crafting from that. I think people who are, you know, like kind of maybe more leaning on the Sam. 8 really shakes a lot of things about the brothers' relationship.
Yes.
And then, like, depending on what episode you've listened to, Monica, Dean fucking Winchester stands in that church at the end of 8 on holy consecrated ground and lies through his teeth.
He does. Oh my gosh. I see the whole trials arc made me so mad. It hurt. It hurt in a lot of ways, but Dean in particular spending the whole episode basically just driving Sam towards suicide, quite frankly, with you know, every comment, listing every single one of his sins over and over and over and over again, and then at the end being like, oh no,
I would never
can't kill yourself because I won't allow it, because I need you here. I mean, I was upset from beginning to end. It's like, no, this is horrible. Like the whole
season is like that though.
He is horrible.
He comes back and he's like, "What do you mean you didn't look for me? Right. Oh well, I've got a new buddy now." Spends the whole season ramming Benny in Sam's face. Oh, he's a better brother. He's better at this. He's better than that. I can't trust you. Blah blah blah. And then stands at that church at the end and lies. So we're already like the ground's shaky at that point,
right?
And then you get it. Then you start 9, and Dean has stood there and lied. And then he goes, "Oh, you died anyway? Not on my watch, motherfucker." And then you got the whole Gadriel thing.
Gaslights him for an entire season. Like, no, I can't.
I can totally see why 10 is the peak, is the point where people go no, because you have 10, and you know they've reconciled at the end of 9, and he's like, no, I totally would have saved you, I love you, don't. And they have the moment at the end of 9, and then Dean comes back as a demon, and you're like, now is the time, and then they just fuck it, and you're like, you know what, I'm done, fuck you guys.
Exactly. That was it. That was you just went through exactly what I went through, and that was exactly it, where I thought, all right, so if 10 is going to be the comeuppance for Dean doing these horrific things throughout 8 and 9 to Sam, then okay, I'll stay for that. But that wasn't the case at all.
Yeah, and also like Sam's kind of like there's no part of Sam after 8 and 9 that wants to go, nah, fuck him.
Right.
And like I know he's not that person. But again, I would have burned it to the fucking ground. I would have been like, no, fuck him. No.
Exactly. He should have left. He should have left, quite frankly, like much earlier. But really, the fact that he stayed after Gadriel, that was the most upsetting. I couldn't. How could you stay in that situation?
He doesn't love you, Sam. Doesn't love you. He does.
No, he does. Clearly doesn't. I mean, that's where it really went from like codependent, kind of fascinating, to know this is just flat out abusive and you need to leave. Like you need to leave. Like
I watched the whole show, and I'm like, I'm a Winston shipper, and I'm like, but I'm kind of like, don't look at the last few seasons. Like, oh yeah, that happens. That's certainly a thing that happened in the show. But I gotta like, this is something that we're trying to tie into this theory. So I know you said you started with Mystery Spot, which is really fucking interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm assuming
that episode still. That's one of my favorite episodes.
See, that's my question. Like, I love it. What do you think about Mystery Spot? Because me and Sandra are very divided on this. I fucking hate it. She's like, no, I think it's great. I think it's great.
I think it's wonderful. I think it's so. There's a few things I like about it. It's very sad. But I also love. I don't love being sad, but I love being moved to emotion, right? And like as a writer too, that's the best news I can get, is if somebody tells me I made them cry or I made them hide under the covers, and I'm like, my work is done. And that's, and that's how I felt with that episode. I'm like, this took me on an absolute roller coaster of emotion, where it is obviously it's very, very funny in parts, and then it gets deadly serious, and then it's just so sad, and that it takes me through the whole arc so well is awesome, and a credit, quite frankly, to the writing of that episode. So I love it, and I think it was kind of a quick, like a very quick primer on their relationship, because like I said, that was my first episode. I was like, all right, well, these two are clearly messed up. Like, tell me more. Tell me more.
I'm invested. What's happening?
They're so messed up that the one brother is going to go 100% RoboCop, and do everything to find this being that he has no ability to kill, to bring his brother back from death. Like, that's fascinating. I'm on board. Tell me more.
So my opinion on Mystery Spot, which I am now solidifying as I am the weird one, because the people that we've asked this to recently have been like, no, I fucking love Mystery Spot, and I'm like,
some people hate it too. Yeah, some people didn't like it too. So you've got company in that regard, Kasey.
I'm starting to think it might just be. Does your opinion change in any way? And it's totally fine if it doesn't. But my opinion of that episode is shaped massively by Jared saying that he hated filming it. It was really difficult.
Oh,
it was
I can understand that was
a really awful week. He had to be like sad and cry all week, and he hated it. So now when I watch that episode, I'm watching Jared struggle, like not struggle because he makes it look effortless, but like I know that it's difficult for him. And that really taints the episode for me, because I'm like, no, it's sad. It's just difficult for him to feel.
I mean, unfortunately, I don't know that changes the episode for me.
That's okay. That's okay.
I think that's probably the case in many episodes, right? Where whenever they do scenes that are particularly emotionally taxing, like I can't imagine that he had an easier time with Sacrifice, right? The season 8 finale. Like I imagine that one was 10 times worse. I might be wrong, but
it's interesting that you mentioned that, actually. I'm just gonna law drop. I met Jared this year.
Oh, hey, congratulations.
Thank you. So he was at a UK convention, and I went, and it was the only supernatural stars that were there were him and Mark Sheppard. So they had a supernatural panel, because obviously with him and Max Sheppard on 3 huge sofas. It was funny. There's 3 huge sofas on the stage, and it was Mark on one sofa, Jared in the middle, and the moderator, the host of the panel.
Each had their own couch.
They had their own couch. I can link you the videos. The videos on YouTube. It's really good. But because A and like the finale of A was the most time that Jared and Mark had spent together filming. That was primarily the focus of what was discussed. And Jared was saying that he was having a really hard time, like in his real life at the end of A. And it's actually really nice stories about like Mark being there for him when they were filming in that church, and when they call cut, and the technical guys are doing their things, and people who are tied up will usually be like, okay, untie me, I'm going to go to my trailer for half an hour, I'm going to go to the bathroom. And Mark just stayed on set, tied up, and Jared was saying like that time was the only time that he would be like listening to music on set and not talking to anybody. And he was really, really going through a lot of the same things that Sam was going through, feeling like he was letting the people that he loved down. And things like that. So it's interesting that you bring up.
I mean, that's probably part of. I'm sure that came through, because it was a very convincing performance. Very upsetting. And that's the thing. I imagine that happens to actors a lot, because actors do frequently. When something feels very genuine in a performance, it's often because it is, right. So that's certainly something that I think about. But yeah, I mean, season 8. I could not rewatch. It was so painful. I could not, and I will not. But
maybe that's why I'm procrastinating in 7. Maybe that's why I'm procrastinating in 7. I can't get past 7. Whenever I try and rewatch, I get stuck in 7.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking. I was thinking there's a theory to this that the more I think about it, like Kasey, I think not being able to continue past a certain point, I really do think I think it's the Sam. I think it's the Sam representation or like what he's going through. That's just like, nope.
It's because I know what's coming, and I know that 8 is going to make me really angry, and then I know that 9 is going to make me angry, and then I know that 10 is going to make me angry, and then there's that one
so
really
I'm
good
not
fucking
even
episode in 11
anymore to trying to get through it because I know it's just more torture, so it's not worth it's not worth you doing.
Well, you see, the thing is, like, we're about to get a little bit controversial here, Monica, because we haven't been controversial at all. Season 8 has the best hair. And I'm really
it does have fantastic hair. No, that's true. I did a side blog for a while on LiveJournal called Sam Winchester's Shirts Are Overrated, Swazo, which did analyses of shirtless Sam mostly, but also had rankings of hair. And I do remember 8 specifically saying that his mane was at its most glorious in season 8.
It was peak.
So yes, it's true. I remember that distinctly, saying that 8 might have nothing for me other than the hair.
And that's the thing. I want to get there because I know the good hair. Not like his hair is good in 7, but I know that the best hair is right there. But I know that I'm going to spend the whole fucking season going "fuck you, Dean," and I don't like. I don't want that because I'm in love with their love. Whether you want to interpret that as romantic or platonic,
right? Whatever. Yeah, they're exactly their relationship. Their
soulmate and their love, and I'm maybe that is what it is. That I don't want to have that shattered for me again the way that 8 and 9 does. Maybe that's what it is. But then also there's that episode in 9 where we're in Sam's brain and he's like putting the parts of himself back together. So you've got like regular Sam and soulless, and then Hell Sam, who's all bloody and sweaty.
That's end of season 6. That's end of season 6.
That was season 6 for sure.
6?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was season 6 because that was Soulless Sam was season 6. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew Soulless was. What the fuck did I get? What did I get 8 from?
I don't know.
Because there is a bit in Sam's brain at the beginning of season 9 when Dean is duping him into being possessed.
Yeah, I think that's what I confused it on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the bit I've. Yeah, because they're in the car. And Bobby's there for some reason, and he's like, "Have you died? Because I have died. And if this is what Sam wants to do, then this is what Sam wants to do." Is that 9 or 6?
That's 9.
That's 9. Yeah.
I'm mixing up my dreamscapes again.
It's okay. It's
it happens.
That's okay.
It's been a long time.
Supernatural. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot. There's a lot to wade through. Supernatural.
I think from like 8 onwards, I've only watched those once. From 8 to finish, I've only watched it once, and every time I go back, I get stuck in like 6 or 7. I don't even know if I'm in 7 right now. No. I watched Slice Girls recently.
That's still 7.
Yeah, that's 7, I think.
Yeah.
7, I know I rewatched 6. I think I rewatched a handful of episodes from 7, but I definitely never rewatched 8 or anything after, nor will I.
Yeah, it's just so interesting.
That's valid. Yeah. Maybe I need to mark myself down in the 1 to 5 has my heart, 6 to 9 breaks it, fuck 10.
It could be. It could be.
Maybe that's what I need to do. Yeah. I like the fact that you've just quietly abandoned Kasey rewatches Supernatural.
Because I'm also a big proponent of watch what gives you joy, and if it's going to end up like at some point just making if it's more work to do, then why would you do it? Why would you put yourself through that? So
exactly right.
Yeah. And I would just say, if that's where you're at and that's good for you, then that's good for you. If you could occasionally want to watch an episode or a clip of season 8 hair, do it. Don't put yourself through the whole rigmarole of what they're doing to each other, in that season. Like, don't give yourself that, added stuff,
Maybe then.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I go frequently when I was doing rewatches regularly still, I would go 1 through 5 and then I would go right to 6-3 and the shirtless workout scene and then call it a day. And then that's where it ends when Soulless Sam hangs up the phone and that is the end of the show.
That's good. That's good.
I've watched all of it. And I die on the hill that Supernatural ended at 1519. And isn't that a weird number to end on? You would have thought they'd gone with like a round number or a 5. 19 is a strange number because I can't have that ending be the ending. So I end it on the end of 19 where they drive off into the sunset and you don't know what happens, and that's where the show ends for me. So
I think a lot of people end there. Yeah.
I cried for so long. Like it was distressing. I can't do that again. I'm not doing that again.
Exactly. Then don't do it to yourself again.
Yeah.
Instead, look at pretty hair and
shirtless workouts
and read good fic. I mean, that's the thing. That's the amazing part of fic, right? Is that we can tell our own ending. We did, in fact, Quickreaver might have mentioned, but we did a group of us wrote like an alternate season 16 that takes place before the finale, which she may or may not have mentioned to you all, but that was pretty fun, where we put a bunch of episodes kind of in between 19 and the last episode.
Okay. Yeah.
See if I can stick a link to that in there.
Yes, please. Link us.
But that was pretty fun. And I mean, I'm sure we're not the only group to have done that, but
oh no. Yeah. No.
But that's one of the beautiful things about Supernatural and the fandom. And I've said it before, we're all reading from the same hymn sheet, but it's wildly differently interpreted. The source material remains the same, but what everyone pulls from it is so nuanced and different. And it's, like the Sam I have in my head is different to the Sam that Sandra has in her head. It's different to your Sam. It's beautiful. I love it.
No, I love it. That's what's amazing. So here, I just put that in there as well. That's the whole series, but it's and it'll give a little summary, but it's all fics and art and is all set in between those 2 episodes. And they did recruit me for co-writing one of them. That's because awesome. they brought back Gordon, who I love. Gordon, obviously. So I helped co-write that one there.
Awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. We've jumped around in the doc a little bit.
Yeah,
just a little. Yeah.
I'm curious because this question kind of leads into like some of the stuff to talk about, some of the stuff that we haven't talked about. So the fanfic tropes that you kind of gravitate towards. I know you've put some stuff in the doc, but like, yeah, just talk to us about that.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked obviously the whole arc of Azazel and the special children was great. I liked everything having to do with Sam's destiny, and it was odd because in a way I did initially find the concept of him being Lucifer's vessel interesting, but the way that it played out was a little bit of a letdown because I thought they were going a different direction, but with Azazel kind of having been replaced by Lilith, and then I thought perhaps that it was going to go back to Sam or something, but then it ended up being like, no, it became a bloodline, right, with Dean and with Sam, and so I don't. Sorry, now I'm going to tropes I don't like. I don't like that. I don't like when it's predetermined and there's nothing you can do, and this is how it's always been. I much prefer when it's like there is a setup where you could potentially do something if you do XYZ steps, which for example is why Ruby's so interesting, because Ruby had to work really hard, quite frankly, to put all the pieces into place.
Yeah.
I saw this on Tumblr and me and Sandra discussed it. Ruby is like the most like religious, dedicated person in the whole fucking show. Girl had a plan and she followed it through, and no matter what happened, she was like, "This is my end goal," and she achieved it. No one else achieved that. She was like, "Oh, fucking."
She may have died, but she succeeded before she went out, right? So she had no, exactly, and so
a true martyr for the cause,
right? And so that is actually something that I do like in terms of tropes. I love someone who is overly dedicated to a cause, like however misguided that may be. One of the things that appeals to me so much about Sam Brady, for example, or the way I write Sam Brady is I really love the overly devoted second. Right. So like if there's someone who is going to do whatever they need to do to put their person into the place that they believe they should be. right? Which is fascinating to me. And so I really like that kind of a trope. And that frequently is how people have written Demon Dean in conjunction with King of Hell Sam.
That's I was gonna say, do you get that kind of like Knight of Hell to Sam's Boinking, or does that not scratch the same itch?
I've done that in a few fics, and the problem for me was that the way that I had envisioned it early on, like if you look at the art that Quickreaver did, right, that I claimed that we were looking at earlier, that's how I would have wanted it, was early seasons. And unfortunately, like the whole way that the Mark of Cain unfolded and the whole Demon Dean arc like really kind of ruined it for me. So I tried to work that in a little bit with the Blade and so forth, but it just wasn't, because that season had lost me. I frequently, when I write that, will put it in earlier seasons rather than later ones, because I don't even want to go into the territory that came with the Mark of Cain, because again, that's like the bloodline thing, and it's also kind of backwards. It doesn't work. I think it's very confusing, because technically it's all the same bloodline. Like that doesn't make any sense. That there's one bloodline from Cain and also one bloodline for Lucifer and Michael, and I don't know. It's all it doesn't. You can fudge it a little bit, but it really, like, unfortunately, I'm a little too literal with some stuff, and that doesn't work for me either way.
The family tree is turning into a refit, guys. This is not what we're doing.
No, tropes that I 100% love, that I wish there were more of, which are I guess you call it self-cest. Right, like two of the same character coming together, and that is something where I think I do enjoy explicit stuff, and I've written it, because what's better than self-love? I
have I don't know if you do, but I have a fucking list. I'm trying to encourage Sandra to write one as well, but when you have ideas and you're like, oh, brain for that right now, so you write it down, and then when you have no ideas, you go back to the list and you be like, I could write that. On my list, I have an entry that says Sam/Sam. Only Sam knows what Sam needs.
Exactly.
Heavy kink.
No, exactly right. And I believe I've even written something like that in the summary of one of my Sam stories. So I did this Kale Sam, Boinking Sam one, but I also have a couple different twists on that, where I didn't particularly like the way that the Soulless Sam arc was resolved either, where I feel like that could have been done differently. And to me, what was one of the things that was a letdown with how that arc was resolved was I felt that the Sam that went to hell should have been distinctly different from Sam, and like I liked the idea of Sam reuniting, but there wasn't really, other than being obviously, for good reason, very exhausted and very sad. There wasn't really like a notable change in Hell Sam, and so I wrote a different version of that, of like what happens to Sam's soul in hell, what and how he and Soulless Sam would interact and kind of become one person. And so I have a fic that explores that, that's really dark. I mean, the tags need to be looked at carefully before being read, but I found
is that his soul to keep?
No, that's, oh gosh, what is that one called? I have to look it up now.
Making a list.
The problem with writing 138 supernatural fics is you don't remember all of the titles or all of the plots. I love getting comments on ones that are very old and going, I said what now? And then I have to go back and look. Oh, like, wait, I did say that. Oh, okay, let me see. And then I have to go reread it. That one, what was that one called? That was called Tear You Apart. Yeah. And that was basically about Soulless Sam fighting harder to not be resold. Right? And then he ends up confronting the Hell Sam version. And that I also put Sam Brady in there because we always need more Sam Brady.
Yeah, absolutely. Why not?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, that's really fun. And so there's a couple other fic writers that have done that before with Sam in one format or another, and that I enjoy very much. And that's, I would say actually that's a thing for me that I like in multiple fandoms. But for Sam in particular, I think he needs more self-love. He needs to forgive himself more, or at least embrace himself, right? So that's something I adore.
I've got to ask, because I just the writing that you do, and I know you answered a little bit of like, you know, when you started writing fanfic, but you're writing in and of itself. What do you do? Like, where does the writing come from? Because the writing is so very detailed, and I'm just like, I'm wondering, this comes from another place too. Like, it's not just a fanfic thing. Did you?
Oh yeah, no, that's true.
Writing, like how did all that come about?
I started writing pretty young. I think I noted it somewhere in your original questions. I think I didn't know that fanfic was a thing.
Right.
But the first thing I ever remember writing distinctly was basically a self-insert fanfic, which was a Star Trek The Next Generation Narnia crossover, where Q took me to Narnia to confront Jadis and Aslan at the same time, you know, because why not? And
why not? Yeah.
and I thought it would be awesome. But yeah, I started writing pretty early on. And what I found so fascinating about fic, which I've actually kind of carried on into original writing now, and it's helped me a great deal, is that with a fandom, you have voices and you have visuals, right? And so what essentially happens is I see the fic, and then I write it down, and I hear the fic and I write it down. So I'm basically just transcribing whatever's unspooling in my head. That's basically it. And so that has carried over to original writing as well, where if I get a scene in my head, or if I have a character and I hear them, frequently they'll be cast because it'll be a voice that I've heard somewhere else from some other actor. Usually if I'm doing original stuff, I'll grab actors that I haven't seen in very much, because then they can kind of turn into something else. For example, I'd never take any of the actors from Supernatural because they're locked into their characters, right? But I would take characters that I see in like a horror movie, particularly ones that have one or two good lines and then disappear, because they're because that'll stick in my head. And so, but yeah, I hear it and I visualize it and then I write it down. And so one of the things I had to learn when I really started writing regularly with Quickreaver, because she's an artist, as you know, as well as a writer, is that I would get fixated on dialogue and I would forget to say where characters are or what they're wearing, you know? And so she, being the artist, would be like, hey, where are they? I'm like, oh, well, obviously they're, I didn't tell the readers where they went. Okay, well, fine then, you know? So she, co-writing with her was wonderful, because she would then write like, they went outside, the moon was shining, you know, and so forth, and put all these descriptors in. And like, oh, okay, so that's what I need to watch, is I need to tell people what I'm seeing in my head. Has to be on the page,
filling in the blanks, but not necessarily getting like so verbose that it's like, you know, pages and pages of the scene setting. But just gets to the meat of it. Right.
Endless dialogue and action, unfortunately, doesn't work if you don't tell people where things are happening or what people look like.
No, that's great, because I think I was mentioning that to Chris when we were talking about some of her stuff too, is that she literally paints with her words, like she does it. She does it so succinctly that it's just like, it just takes a couple of lines and you see the scene. And I think that with you, it's very much resonate. Like, the dialogue is just so very good, but whatever I think you might have felt you had to learn, I think you learned it very, very quickly, because you paint a scene with your words that's very, even just like the devil between the devil and the deep blue sea, which to me, just, there were so many visuals in that was just so mind-boggling to a point, but like was so very, it just captured like the canyon and the Valkyries and the angels and like all of the stuff that was happening, and that was just so great. But then you could like take a very simple scene of like them playing chess in Central Park, and it was just so very, it just resonated with the characters and their dialogue, and the characterization, so very great and on point. I think with everything I've read of yours so far, I have not been disappointed by any of it. And Best Self was another thing where I was like, okay, we're going here. And it was amazing in terms of how you took two different versions of Sam and had them sort of like vying for power, but then giving into each other a little bit. But
exactly.
It was just, it was great. It was just great.
So much.
Great.
That makes me
great
very
stuff.
happy. Yeah, no, the Grand Canyon is somewhere I've actually been lucky enough to have been, right? And it leaves such an impression on you.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't, I can't help but visualize that when I'm writing about it. So I'm glad that came through. That's a phenomenal place.
I think it's one of those things too, where like the more you get more of your own experiences, the more you can inject into writing. But a lot of times too, it's more about just the how do you work with another person? Like how does that fit?
So that's interesting when you're doing co-writing, right? It really depends on you and the other person and your strengths and kind of your desires with what you want to get on the page. And what really worked with Chris and I really, really well is that we both kind of wanted the same thing from the get-go. And we had, certainly early on, we had very complementary strengths, right? Where like I was saying, right, she would write a lot of the visuals and I would just like go bananas with the dialogue and the action. So that worked very well for us. But it's interesting because doing the project, for example, the season 16 project, we kind of did map out things. Like we had a bit of a outline and we would say, okay, I'm writing this part, you're writing this part. I think that's something that you have to develop for each project. You have to kind of find your rhythm with whoever you're working with when you're doing co-writing. My favorite thing when if I work with like an RBB, a reverse Big Bang, that's honestly one of my favorite things ever to do for writing, is to take a picture and find the story inside of it. Like that, it's not even necessarily that it's easy, but I get to a point where I know what the story is once I find it, and then it just unspools from there, right? Because the visual is in there. And that's something I've done a couple times with original stuff as well. I've been lucky enough to do that, but that's amazing to me because you look at a picture long enough and it will tell you a story, right? And generally anyway, so like working with people that way is one of my favorite things of all time. But having had the reverse happen to me makes me feel so incredibly lucky. Like I can't even, that I've had two artists turn works of mine into comics. That's
beautiful. Yeah,
that's incredible.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And the other one is Lucky Rave for MCU. She turned one of my, so early on in MCU fandom, shocker, I was also obsessed with the long-haired one with autonomy issues, right? So I was writing a Winter Soldier fic, a very long one called How They Make You a Weapon, which was also supposed to be, just like you were saying earlier, a one-shot, and then it was not. And going on and on and on and on. But yeah, so Lucky Rave, she turned this back into a comic book, which is just absolutely beautifully illustrated. And all these amazing artists have been unbelievably generous. And that's the amazing thing about fandom, right? Is that it's gifts. We constantly give each other gifts over and over and over again out of nothing but our love for the characters and kind of passion for what we make, of it, right? which is amazing.
The reverse Big Bang, how that works out. I know there's an initial piece. Does it then end up being a collaborative, like part of it again too, where like once you write something, do they tend to draw something else related to what you've written, or how does that work? So what happens
with the reverse Big Bang is that you claim a piece, and then depending on what the artist agrees to, they'll usually commit to making, I think the rules generally state that they have to commit to make one more piece or something like that.
Okay.
But the artist can essentially make however much they want to, however much they're willing to make. And sometimes you end up with many, many illustrations, and sometimes you just have the prompt piece, depending on where it goes. But I mean, Chris she's just been incredibly generous with her talent. And how much she puts out there.
Yeah, but in the land of Nod, I think the white suit was definitely, justice was done to that suit.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It was
oh
definitely,
my gosh.
it was amazing. It was amazing. And
Stunning.
I was really taken by that too. And I think Chris had also even mentioned that you were like the first person to figure out how to do like a GIF, like, you know, like for some art.
I don't know that I was the first. I don't know that I was the first person, but I was fiddling around with it when the technology was very, very new.
Well, for her, I think she was like, Monica figured it out well before I did, kind of a situation. Yeah.
I had software and I was playing around. Right, that was the one that we did with Sam and the wings made of blood.
Yeah.
For that was one where I figured it out. And it was incredibly fun to figure out. Sorry, I just posted the MCU comic I was talking about there, and I have actually, I think also I don't know if you do show notes or anything, but the knot also has a master post here somewhere. Let me see if I can find it. But yeah, no, we had so much fun. I mean, that was part of it, you know, in the early days, just kind of trying to figure out how to make all this technology work. It was really a thing.
That's amazing. Everything that you, and that's again, like you talk about with the fandom, the gifting, or just the ability to support in one way or another with how, like, you know, the writing's going or the art's going, different things like that. It's very different from just writing. I think, you know, and I think until you like experience it, you don't really know that, you know, there's all of this support, you know, that's just kind of like ready to just soak it up like a sponge and wring it out back to you and stuff like that.
Right. No, and that was exactly it. I was floored from the beginning that like there was this much passion out there, you know, and that some of it was coming my way. Like I didn't expect any of that. Yeah. Like, what? This is incredible. This is I think the one that I posted there is my favorite one page of Nod, where there are a lot, but just like the composition that Quickreaver used in this one, the shot of Lucifer, Sam, and his one beautiful loafer lifted with the heel up. That's been my icon on AO3 for ages now, because I was so taken with that shot, and I was like, oh gosh, that's perfect, because that's exactly how I pictured it.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, no,
it is beautiful.
That's the other skill, right? Is just like the ability of the artist to kind of see what's in your brain. That's also amazing. And then that was the other one that I loved, just because I thought her composition there of the comic page was awesome. But yeah, it's incredibly cool. The fandom is awesome.
Yeah.
That would be
100%.
They are.
Yeah.
I wanted to, because we will keep you a long time, and I don't want to do that to you, but I've been loving the conversation. But I wanted to go into some of your favorite works that you've written. I know you touched on them a little bit, but because I'd love to kind of like pick your brain a little bit about one of them in particular. Okay. But like some of your favorite works that you've written, if you could go through like a couple of them that you listed in the notes. I know you talked about On His Head a Crown a little bit, with Conquest being Horseman Sam to the extent, but like the other two, could you talk about a little bit? The other Fics? Yeah, that you mentioned.
Absolutely. So his Soul to Keep is kind of my another one that I had wanted to write for a while, and then I wrote it because there was a horror challenge, and it's very much psychological horror. And what I did in this one, which I really enjoyed, it's a technique that I really like, where you tell the same story from two points of view.
I love that.
And so you get the story first from Dean's point of view, and then you get it from Sam's point of view. And what I hope to have done is laid the groundwork in the first part that you get the sense that you're not seeing the whole picture, so that when you read the second point of view, things fall into place. And something because I primarily enjoy writing horror and tragedy, one of the things I like to do, right, is slide the dagger in and then twist it very slowly, you know, like if I can get the pain to be amped up by the end, then I've done my job as a horror writer. And I think I did it successfully in that one.
You did. You did, because my heart was breaking.
Oh no, I have this open. I'm scared.
I would say I'm sorry, but that was my plan all along.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I liked writing that one, and that was kind of the whole what if season 3, right? What did you say? You bend it a little, right?
What if it just bends a little, which actually is it's a story that Jensen tells from the episode Changing Channels.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, when they get put in that Japanese TV show, and they're showing Jared and Jensen the mechanism, and like it's reinforced steel and blah blah blah, because Jensen's an absolute fuck, just an asshole. He goes, yeah, but what if it just bends a little? And Jared's like, what if it just bends a little?
That's wonderful. I didn't know that's where it came from. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that's where it comes from. I found it's like a compilation of like just like behind the scenes set stories. So there's like the snake from Yellow Fever, the bees from Bugs, but yeah, just that, because they set off, and Jensen tells the story much better than I do, but they set the mechanism off, and it's just like wham, and I'm like, no, it's reinforced, and he's like, yeah, what if it just bends a little? But
exactly.
It is my mantra now, when I'm starting to write, like, here is this thing, but what if it just bends a little,
Exactly.
Yeah. What if it just twists a little bit and goes wildly off the rails?
Exactly. And that's the beauty of fic. And I think 100%. The first three that I listed actually are all kind of specific moments in canon where I go off on a tangent, right? So his soul to keep was clearly like the end of season 3. Like, what if we hadn't needed season 4 and Sam had in fact not failed to keep Dean from hell, and how that would play out. And on his head of crown, meanwhile, was what happens if we take off at 5-3. And it goes differently, and we get a very different version of 5-4. And then Still Driving, which is I think one of my favorites overall. Really, it was the last fic I wrote for Supernatural, and I think I will leave it as my last fic because I'm kind of happy with it as my farewell letter. But this was also again end of season 4, and it was between the Rapture and oh gosh, the episode that I love so much that my brain is trying to protect me from its name, when the levee breaks.
Right? Yeah.
And it is that it's a very specific moment in those episodes. And so these are all moments that kind of grabbed me, right, for various different reasons. And Still Driving, I think what I'm really focusing on like one particular beat in Sam's timeline, and I like that. I like exploring something kind of to its fullest. And that one is kind of written. It's written in a repetitive way, which I quite like. I do within fandom and outside of fandom, I love writing very short stories, which you may have noticed. Like, I've written a lot of fics, but some of them are very, very short. And one of the things I really like about horror as a genre is that it is served very well by very short stories, because you're kind of forced to tell the tale in the most bare bones way possible. And you try to get to the heart of the matter as effectively as you can, particularly if you have an upper limit on flash fiction, for example. You can't write, for most cases, you can't write more than 1,500 words. In some cases, they have to be under 1,000 words. And so telling an effective story with that few words is a challenge that I really enjoy. And I try to use some of that in fic as well. How can I most effectively get this across? So that's kind of what that one is about. And the other ones I listed were obviously my Sam Brady fics, where Before the One You Serve, oh my gosh. So that is another version of what if Sam had stayed with Brady rather than leaving Stanford, right? And also Boinking. And that one does in fact have some explicit Sam Brady in it, but with voyeur Dean. So it's I would say it's one that I reread often.
That's great.
Yeah,
you should reread your own stuff. You write to make yourself happy, but
this author writes everything that I like. Exactly.
Right? Yes, I'm so lucky I found them.
And Last Drop is the same idea in terms of Sam Brady, but it's literally at Stanford. And so that one was really fun. So talking about tropes, this was called, it was a challenge called Dark Roast, which was a dark coffee shop AU, right? And so it was
I remember the artwork.
coffee.
Yeah, there was artwork
So it
for
was
that.
taking the coffee shop AU, but making it dark. So
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, all right,
Yep,
you've got me.
Great.
I'm there. So that one was really fun. And then obviously Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, which has just like such a beautiful poster art. From Quickreaver, like really, really gorgeous. And that one was just really fun to write. And it I think is probably one of the most humorous ones I've written. I've written a few funny ones. I do that on occasion.
That one did have it. I particularly liked Pestilence, I think, in War's like relationship in it. Like it was very brotherly and just very like funny. But then I also like it was an interesting. I don't want to like spoil it in case Kasey doesn't, but like a little bit of the twist with the whole archangel and the vessel thing, and like the Dean part of it, and like all of that like exploration. Because in my mind, I was having a very difficult like time with like how much is Sam, how much is Lucifer, like
exactly,
because this merging of them was just so very like I was trying to parse it out myself, and it was just like it's so layered. Like if you really just like read it again, like try to go back and go, wait a minute, like what's actually happening here in this moment? So there was a lot of just like like thoughts, like like really making me stop and think. And I think that's what I really like once I got to like going back to His Soul to Keep. The Dean POV was just very like sadness of like leaving or like having to be pulled away from Sam, not really feeling it. And then all these little things again that like I wasn't really putting it together. And then you go into Sam's POV and I was like, oh, this, and I love those kinds of fics with a show where you're putting other things in there, and you're like you said, you were kind of like speeding through the whole Boinking arc and making it happen in season 3 in a way that was so very different, but was totally plausible if you go back and looked at the show and the way you referenced the different timeline points. But then I was also like, no, Dean. I was like, the like the spell, like all that stuff was just so very much like it was making me question so many things. Like I was like, well, does that mean that like, if the binding spell, like if it wasn't like right or it wasn't genuine, like how would that have worked differently, and like different things like that. So it
would not have worked if it wasn't there in Dean, right? It was 100% like it had to be there in both of them in order for it to work. It was. Yeah.
I think you'll really like it, Kasey. I mean, it was.
Can't wait.
And the Ruby part of it, it was just so good. But yeah, you definitely like just twisted the knife in that. Like when it started, like I'm like, oh, here we go. But then I could also see, like again, you see the struggle that Sam has of wanting to save Dean and what he's willing to do. But then what that entails. But then his acceptance of it, and like, well, this is what I have to do. This is what I have to do. And it was just,
and that's why I love Mystery Spot, right? I mean, that's the thing, like that is in fact the turning point that sets off that fic. And I've written a few things about Mystery Spot. I wrote an AU of Mystery Spot actually also, which which is pretty fun, called Wednesday. That's a short one. But no, it's just it was phenomenal to me, that episode, like the range, the depth of emotion in that one episode, right? And like how far this guy is willing to go for his brother. And I was like, all right, well, this is amazing. And that's why I think he could have very easily gone full dark side in season 3, and I think the only reason he didn't, quite frankly, is because they ran out of time. Like So I think that's always a really fun part of canon to explore. And there were a lot of fics written for exactly that during that hiatus, right? During that incredible cliffhanger era. There were a lot of fics. And so some of the favorite fanfic authors that I wrote down there did that. Tahiriri, who I noted there, wrote this incredible fic called Repo Men, it was never 100% finished. But again, like I love cliffhangers, as I said, so that doesn't bother me at all. But that played off of the penultimate episode of season 3 with the doctor and
Oh,
his
yeah.
immortality.
Time is on my side.
Oh.
In my no, what was it called? The episode
Time is on my side.
Time is on my side. That's
Yeah,
the one. Yes,
yeah.
thank you. And so it built on that. Like, what if that had been the answer to keeping Dean out of hell, right? For real.
Yeah.
And so that one is phenomenal. I really love that. And Rocal also wrote several of those. Dream Little Yo wrote a lot. Although those were, I think, almost all Wincest, but they're also great.
Yeah.
And so, and Flesh Flutter also, for that matter. All these people wrote season 3 alternate resolutions to keeping Dean out of hell, and they were all amazing. Yeah, and then in later seasons, there's other writers. Danugas might be mispronouncing that, but she alone is honestly, like, in a way, I would say responsible for my having written as consistently as I have, because she has this incredible thing that's still going on LiveJournal, where I assume of like NaNoWriMo, which has had some AI controversy recently. But so we have a community on LiveJournal that we've had for a long time now called 12moWriMo, where you basically pledge to write whenever you want, every day for a month. And so since I joined that group, have been writing continuously every day.
Wow.
And
that's awesome.
Sometimes it's just, a few hundred words. But for me, that's helpful. I have a lot of writer friends who don't do that, who do the opposite, right? Like, they won't write for a week and then they'll sit down and write 10,000 words, which I can't do that. I do it every day. So, like, for me, it's a habit. But that's the thing. But she has this community, and that's literally all we do, is we jot down how many words we're planning on writing per day that month. And then we jot down how many words we actually wrote. And I actually do the statistics posts for those, so that at the end we get a tally of every month.
So like a fun way to be accountable, like, to have somebody like to have your back and be like, that's great.
And it doesn't, obviously nothing happens if you don't do it,
absolutely.
right? It's not like you get any flack for not doing it, but I am one of those people who, if I say I'm going to do something, I will do it,
Same.
So psychologically for me, it's very helpful.
So the commitment is the hardest part. That's exactly. Like, once I know I've committed to it, then I know I'm doing it. It's like, okay,
exactly,
yeah.
Right,
absolutely.
And so, I credit her with so much, but that's one of the main things, is like having that community, having kept it going for so long. It's been unbelievably helpful to just have like a thing that's like, yes, you should do this today, So.
Monica, I know I'd written something in about like Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea and all that, because I just had a question, because I wasn't a part of it and I've heard rumblings about it, but like, how soon was it just floating about that Chuck was God? Like,
I think I answered that in here. Hang on, but I do remember. So for sure, it was the season finale where Chuck appears in all white at the computer, right? At the very end of the episode. And so at that point, fandom kind of grabbed that and was like, okay, this, and I do think that there were kind of two schools of thought at the time. And one of them was that Chuck had been God all along, which I did not subscribe to. I actually thought that God had taken a vessel, because that's what they do on Supernatural, right?
Yeah.
So I had assumed that basically what that was is God briefly occupying Chuck, and being like, I am here now. And so it was, again, like, I didn't watch all the later seasons and what they did with Chuck, but if he was enough of an asshole that Sam felt compelled to shoot him, I know Sam was in the right.
I didn't even need to see the context. My boy has never done a thing wrong a day in his life. He's a goddamn baby.
He hasn't. It's true. Everything Sam does is correct. And so,
you're among friends here.
And so, and so that's, it's a little disappointing in the sense that I do think it kind of undoes a lot of what we had with OG Chuck the Prophet, who was adorable. And
I loved him.
What I did really like about the idea of God having taken Chuck as a vessel, and that early part of his story, right, was the monster at the end of this book, which is a wonderful episode. And the conversation that Chuck and Sam have, where he's saying, do you feel that it, does it really all rest on my shoulders? And that's the way this story seems to be headed. And if you rewatch that in the context of Chuck was always God, that's a very interesting conversation. Which I really like. I did like doing that early on. And I also just want to point out that the size difference between Sam and Chuck in that episode when they're both standing is the best thing in that entire episode.
I know you said you watched the finale. Did you watch 1519?
No. That was the one before the finale, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
I would recommend watching that. You don't have to watch the whole episode, but that is a here be spoilers, I guess. There is a physical fight scene between Sam, Dean, and Chuck as God. This is where Jack comes in and defeats God, is that right? I did know part of that. I saw that in GIF form on Tumblr. Yes. Yeah, but that's not the part of, like, Jack comes in at the end. That's not. It is a physical beatdown.
Are you
fight.
telling me that my boy Sam punches God in the face, because that might be better than him shooting God?
I don't know. I can't remember if we see him punch God in the face on camera. But the thing I'm specifically thinking about is we have very bloody, beaten Sam and Dean. And, Chuck is getting more and more and more frustrated that they won't just lay down and die. And Sam laughs at him. And he's like, we will never lay down. We will never stop getting back up. And it is like...
That's great. That's wonderful. Good job, buddy.
Yeah. So,
great.
if just thinking about the monster at the end of this book, if you want to write more books, that's fine with us. Really? No, we have guns. No. If you're into that, like, 2 foot fucking difference between Rob and Jared, it's a really, really great scene. And like I said, you don't have to watch the rest of the episode. You don't even have to, like, the bit where Jack comes in at the end is not, like, that's not what I'm talking about. It is just the Winchesters bloody and beaten and refusing to bow and getting back up and laughing in his face. That's just Jeff's kiss.
Right.
Chef's kiss. And also, I actually really do that. No, we have guns. We'll find you.
That's a very good line. Yes, agreed.
It is a great line.
Agreed.
So I have a couple more, and then we're going to let Kasey in, and because that way, then we don't keep it too much longer.
Yes. No, this has been great. I mean, I haven't even noticed that, and suddenly looked up and
it's
realized
like 2 hours
have gone by. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I edit the hell out of this one.
No, it's don't even worry about it. It's an open invite to come back. And the next time we won't be on, like, any kind of time schedule, and I won't have not had any fucking sleep. And we can delve into all of the things that we've only been able to touch on in this episode. Don't even worry about it. But Sandra, go with your thingy.
But I know we've talked a lot about, like, Quickreaver and, like, your collaborations with her, but can you talk about some of the other artists you've kind of been able to work with, and you talked a little bit about MCU and stuff like that, but, like, even just in terms of, like, the SPN side of things.
Yeah. So I worked with Slitherkins for on his Head of Crown, and that was actually incredible because the art, again, like, just really captured what was in my head incredibly well. And I also just really appreciated the specific moments that were chosen to be illustrated, where if you peek at it, but there's, like, without spoiling too much of the fic, obviously, I think I've already said it's kind of an AU of the end, right? So there's a lot of scenes. It does follow the same pattern in that there's a time jump for Dean, and he wakes up in an altered future. And so there's a particular shot that Slitherkins did of Dean's face, which is just great because it's such the perfect expression of, his surprise, right? And there's an illustration of Chuck in there, and it's just lovely. The colors are gorgeous, and particularly the ending illustration, which is very much a spoiler, is exactly what was in my head. And that is always astonishing to me when an author just, reaches in there and grabs it and puts it into colors. Was there like discussion about it, or was it basically just having read your stuff came up with the vision that you'd had? Because I find that great. Like, when you like, I think that's a good question. I think that Slitherkins picked the particular scenes to do, but what I used to do with Quickreaver, and I might have done for that one as well. I'm honestly not 100% sure. I'd have to go back and look. But what I used to do in the interest of time with these longer stories is I would go in and highlight like 6 to 8 scenes that I thought were probably interesting visually and say, you know, this is something you could consider if you don't have time to read the whole thing or whatever, or if you need to just pick a few, here's some I think might be great. And then the artist can just go in and look for the highlighted sections and kind of pick what they like. So I definitely did that for Chris on multiple occasions because we both have day jobs, you know, and everything else. I'd be like, all right, well, here, you know, this will make it easier for you, so you can just take a peek. So I do that sometimes where I'm like, I think this is a good kind of catnipy moment for the artist, so hopefully they will like one of these. And his soul to keep, though, I did want to mention, so that was Sweetheart Dean. And what was amazing about this is, so there's a cover art and then there's one illustration, which is right in between the two POVs. And that one piece of art encapsulates the entire fic. And it's just genius. And I really, I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, like they totally got it. Like they totally got the story. I was so happy.
That binding and that thread it was
phenomenal. And the colors are beautiful, and the way that Sam is in the shadow. I mean, it's just amazing. Really, like that's what blows my mind with all these incredibly talented artists is how they can really get like to the core of the matter, right? They capture the emotion of the moment. But in this one it was incredible because it was really the whole story in one picture. So
but I think that says a lot too about you as a writer, that somebody can capture that too, like you know, based off of like what they've read or what they've experienced in the story, and then how it kind of, you know, it just blossoms into that. So again, it's very like yin yang kind of thing, like you need one without the other, you know, it just doesn't work kind of a thing. So
it's very symbiotic, you could say.
There's just like just like Venom, there we go, you got it. Oh my goodness,
seeing a theme here.
That's right.
But I'm going to let Kasey go with their last couple questions. So if you'd like to share, I think I probably know the answer to this, but it's not a problem if you don't. We will just cut the section out. How did you come up with your username?
I'll mention the last part only because that's really the crucial part. I do, as I said, I do actually occasionally write funny things, but sometimes when I write horror and it's flagged very clearly as horror, and then someone says, why did you make the ending so upsetting? Then I'll say, have you seen my username?
Clue is in the name, friends. It's literally right there.
My name, Monica, Puppies and Rainbows. It is not. It is not. It is Monicawoe, and I will give you woe.
Last question. Well, it's my last question. Sandra has another question after this. So this is the secret question. You may already know it depending on what episodes you've listened to, but hopefully you don't, because too many people are catching on now. I'm going to have to change it. What is your favorite dinosaur?
Oh,
yeah.
I mean,
it's been so long since I got a silence.
I gotta go with the classic, which is the T-Rex, because it's just so fucking strange, dangerous, but strange. I love the giant head. I love the tiny arms. I love the giant legs. I love that it's basically a chicken. Like if you look at the way that they move, and it's just fucking awesome. Like to be that bizarre looking and that terrifying at the same time. That's a life goal.
No, I'm fully with you. Yeah. You mentioned chicken, and then I was just thinking, you know, the arms are kind of like if you ever see a plucked chicken.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of like it's not quite the same, but you can kind of see how it evolved into it. That's awesome. Yeah. No, people are listening and people are getting wise to the question, and I don't get that silence anymore. But adults don't ask other adults what their favorite dinosaur is, and I'm on a one-person mission.
Well, they should
change that. They should, right?
They should,
in your everyday life, like go outside to your like real life job or whatever it is you do, and just be like, "Hey, it's Monday. What's your favorite dinosaur, y'all?"
Exactly.
Fucking put it out into the universe. Eventually, I'm going to have to give credit for this question, but today is not that day.
It's a good question.
Good. Excellent. Thank you.
Before we let you go, I just wanted to first of all say thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
The time that you've given us has been very much appreciated. You know, we've been able to talk to a lot of different fanfic authors. We're hoping to touch base with a little more artists at some point, because we really feel like that's an important part of the fandom that doesn't quite get at least enough love, like on
oh my gosh, the artists deserve so much love, so much. They're amazing.
And I think after we've like had our experience, you know, with the Big Bang and stuff, it's like it's more important, I think, to kind of like reach out to whoever. And again, we were just like over the moon when Quickreaver was like, and we'd figured that out through Amy and Ashtray Thief and stuff like Ash. So it was like having all that connection has just been really great to just talk to people who've been in the fandom for a long time and maybe, you know, aren't in it anymore, but have given so much. And I think you are a perfect example of that. Like, you know, for us who 100%. Got into the fandom in like 2019 to then still be able to find your stuff and just, oh my God, this is
that's also amazing. Thanks to AO3, right? I mean, what
absolutely. Without that, it wouldn't be a thing because we are not live journal people. You know what I mean?
No.
So like not
and
having...
you shouldn't be, quite frankly. I mean, live journal functionally is falling apart. Like I look back on it with nostalgia only in the way that you look back on, like, well, again, I'm dating myself, having had to use a modem. You know what I mean? Like,
it's like the struggle was real, y'all, and there's a reason why we're moving past that, and it's time for something different.
I in no way want to go back to using a modem, nor do I want fandom to be dependent on live journal. Like AO3 is so much better.
Yeah. But the one thing I wanted to ask before we let you go too is like, what words of wisdom would you give other fanfic authors who maybe are having a tough time writing, or maybe there's a little bit of like, I don't know, they're just not really, they just don't feel that their writing might be, you know, worth other people reading, or like, is there just like a little bit of like maybe self-doubt? Is there any like words of wisdom you could give them to be like, go do the thing kind of thing?
Absolutely. So my advice is, above all other things, write for yourself. And I'm 100% serious, because at the end of the day, like you are your own audience, and you need to write something that you enjoy above all other things. And believe it or not, even when you're writing for like a niche of a niche, as I am, right? With Boinking Sam, there's going to be a handful of people that are going to fucking love that stuff.
It's so, me. I'm people.
That's right. You're people. And look, I found some. No, but that's exactly it. Like, write for yourself, you know. And the only other thing I would add, because this is something I had to learn, is if you're stuck, tell yourself the story. And that sounds simplistic, but what I mean is, don't worry about how your writing looks from a technical standpoint. When you're first getting ideas down, tell yourself the story. And then you can go back and turn it into actual dialogue and scenes. But if you need to get ideas down before they flit away, then just do that. You just tell yourself the story. And a first draft can be as ugly as you need it to be. It's just a first draft.
Yeah, that's great.
I love that.
Yeah, tell yourself the story is really, really important. I think that's
the episode title right there.
Yeah,
I think that's it.
I think so.
It's true.
I think so.
And sometimes the story is, Sam is really sweaty. He's so sweaty.
He's just really fucking sweaty in that episode.
There's all this sweat pooling in the hollow of his throat.
And then you come up with demonic junkies. Yeah. And then you come up with demonic junkies. Yes, indeed.
I want to be. Oh, like, no, it was the conversation with Famine, but it was fucking word. It was when he was in the bathroom all sweaty. That was what it was. That was what it was. Yeah,
exactly. Sometimes you want to be all high-minded and be like, no, it was the depths of addiction. And no, it's just,
or like, I always find it fun too. Like when you get somebody makes a comment, like, I love that you saw this and this. And you're like, oh yeah, I totally.
Oh yeah, that's what I saw. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so I reply to those comments that go, if I told you that was intentional, would you believe me?
No, but there's so much to enjoy about your writing. And I think for us for a long time, we were kind of like, yeah, you know, we like to write, we like to read explicit, we like to read, but I think I know myself dipping into Wincest a little bit more. And then like now Jen, the general part of it, like there's so much story that fills in all of those other pieces that people like to talk about or like to explore, like the explicit. But then you get all of this other part that kind of, it just builds on itself. And I think it's wonderful. Like I think Quickreaver was one of the ones that kind of got me just into reading more Jen. And now like reading a lot of your stuff, but then seeing those little, like, it is bending a little bit, you know, even if it's not going the full way and you're not like exploring that part of it, you're seeing that and you're you're working with it and like twisting it a little bit. And I really do. I love and appreciate that more and more every time I get just recommendations by different like authors and artists. And thank you for giving us those additional like authors to kind of like look into and like see more of their stuff.
No, they're amazing. I mean, that's one of the things I learned in fandom early on, right? Is that like there's some writers that are just obsessed with the plot and like the plot going in weird directions. And sometimes there is overlap with explicit stuff, but sometimes there's not. And more often than not, I was kind of let down by the lack of plot for right?
Of course.
I wanted when I'm looking for Boinking Sam, I want him to actually be boinkinging, right? More than boinking. More than boinking, I want him to be boinkinging.
That's another really good line. More than boinking.
Yes, you can use that one. And so I would get very disappointed when it was all boinking and no boinking. So I like, no, that's where are the demons?
Yeah.
Where's the hell management? Which you know, that's what I'm here for. So
I mean, awesome. That's certainly a great niche. Like how does Sam run his hell? You know? Oh god,
exactly.
There's about 50 plot bunnies spawning in my brain now. No, I got shit to do. I don't have time for this. Fuck.
Just let the bunnies run and then come back to them later. It's fine.
No, that's not what happens. I'll be laid awake tonight going, do you think he does this? How do you think he runs the economy? Do you
that's
think
right.
he hangs on the heads?
That's
like
right.
that'll be me at 2 a.m. this morning. Like tonight, going, I just feel like he'd appreciate the artistry of hanging.
Oh, for sure. And he definitely used spreadsheets.
Yeah.
100%.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Exactly.
Monica, I'm going to let you get to your laundry.
Oh, thank you. I've been dying. I've been just thinking, man, if only I could stop having this awesome conversation and go do laundry.
No, but we really do appreciate the time. And yeah, we'd love to.
Thank you so much for joining us.
There's an open invitation. If you ever want to come back, talk about a topic, or if we just like, if we get another chance to have you back, we'd love to like, pick your brain.
If there's a topic you think that my input would be helpful for, absolutely let me know.
Awesome.
This is very fun.
Hey, you know what? If you like junkies, drop me an email if you like junkies. And when it's finally fucking finished, we'll have a chat. We'll have a chat about how it could have been Boinking Sam and my fucking bleeding heart got in the way.
Yeah, I have it open. I will obviously comment on AO3, which is my favorite form of feedback is the commenting.
Awesome.
But yeah, I will do that. And yeah, I'm so psyched by the idea of you reading Still Driving. It would make me unbelievably happy.
I am very much looking forward to doing that. Yes.
I'm looking forward to Sandra's rendition of that. I read that this afternoon because that was the only one I had brain for, and I was like, oh god,
that's concentrated sadness. That's what that one is.
Yeah, I like you said, the repetitiveness of it, and like just hammering home and like looking at it from a different way, and just like digging in a little bit more. That's definitely almost fun read.
Almost like Mystery Spot in its own way. Oh, but it wasn't like that. It's Tuesday again. What's going to happen this time? Very clever.
If you want another Mystery Spot one, you can read Wednesday, which is very short. But that was my Boinking version of Mystery Spot, which I had to write at one point.
Absolutely.
Right? I was like,
absolutely,
let's do it.
Absolutely,
awesome.
Yeah.
All right, well
so
then
much.
I will say my farewells. Thank you. This was incredibly fun. Yay!
Thank you so much for joining us. We had a blast, Monica.
Thanks.
All right. Well, you have a good
your laundry.
I will enjoy. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, that was so good. I want her to come back when we're not on a
Did
time
you have
crunch.
fun? I can tell you were having a lot of fun. You were having the bestest of times, and I was glad. I was glad for that.
Talk to me more about someone just.
I was glad. I was glad.
Yeah.
What were some of your overall takeaways from the conversation with Monica?
This is more of a takeaway from the last bit of the conversation because I don't have a great deal of brain left. I'm real sorry, guys. I don't know if we've mentioned, but I've it's been a fucking weekend, y'all. It's been a weekend. I have not had a great deal of sleep. But kind of the more people that we talk to, I'm getting more of an appreciation for Jen and the stories, if you want to read about Boinking Sam, you want to read about him boinkinging, not fucking somebody. not boinking. Yeah, that's so great. I love that as wordplay. But yeah, it's just getting an appreciation for the storytelling, because I think it's something I'm kind of moving more into now.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. I know you probably don't like it, but you are.
Things just keep happening to me. All right.
I think it's happening very organically, which I think is just great to see. Is that you definitely are getting into more of the storytelling part of it, and I think that's it's great. It's great to see an evolution like that, in real time, kind of happening. So,
I couldn't have written the things that I've written in the last couple of years when I started, back in 2020, certainly. But yeah, no, it's always good. It's always good to talk to a Sam lover because this moose, he do be heavy, y'all. He do be heavy. But like, especially when it's someone who has like, those kind of darker interests that appeal to me, and like, Boinking and what if it had gone that way, and who is still mad about 10, and it was right fucking there. It was right there, and you just get.
Yeah, I think it's nice to know too that there are other people that get it the way that you do, right? Like, and I know, that sometimes the Dean love is a little on the heavier side, but like, I think it's important to get those people that, have their own thoughts about Sam that, balances out. I think that's kind of what we do anyway in general when we're talking about the show and the characters, but it's great to have that outside input. Like, I see the same thing that you do. And I'm pissed off about this, that, this thing that, and I don't get why it had to be this way. And I think in general, people have that for different reasons for the shows and the characters, but to get a little bit more Sam love and Sam Boinking and all of those things was, I think, really refreshing and great to get a chance to listen to you two kind of like talking about it as well.
And you know what? It's really, we seem to have been talking to people recently that have kind of left the fandom. They didn't finish the show, and they've, either they just didn't finish the show, but they're still in the fandom, or they've, they didn't finish the show and they've feel like they've done what they want to do with the fandom, but you can still really feel the love for the characters. And they're really like, this was a really important part of my life that, just still sits with me and still resonates. And I really think that speaks to Supernatural as a, far more than just a show, that it, whether you're in it for probably life, like we think we are, or, whether it's just a period of your life, it stays with you, and it leaves its mark, which I think is really great.
I think it goes back to that theme that you and I keep talking about every once in a while too, is like knowing when to leave a space for your own benefit. And I think fandom or show or whatever, like, how I keep rewatching, but I rewatch, I think, for a different reason than, and I've I think I've just come to the conclusion that not everybody can do that. And it's okay, because they have to do what's best for them. So for me, it's like, I can do the rewatches in a way that doesn't jive with, how you just can't see. I think we just keep getting to the reasoning behind it even more as discussions happen.
I'm learning a lot about myself in these discussions for fucking sure. Yeah.
I think that's interesting, and that's good to know. You don't have to put yourself through the trauma, even if the boys are getting put through it on the show. We don't have to experience it if we don't want to. And it's giving ourselves the okay to do that and to make it our own. And I think that's what the fandom and the fan fiction is kind of all always about at the end of it. And I think that could be more positive than negative. And I think we have a lot of choice in that, and free will, so to speak, like, when we're just like done with the story, and how we're going to do it ourselves. So I think it's been great. I hope we get to do more of these, because I always enjoy hearing everyone's take on the show, fan fiction, fandom, all of that stuff. So yeah, we've got more people coming. We'll get to hear a lot more versions of this, but it's been great to have another Sam person on. So yeah, again, big thanks to Monica. We are going to wrap up because it's been a 24-hour period that we probably should have put ourselves through again. So we want to thank you for listening and let us know what you thought of the episode. You can email us at idlingintheimpala@gmail.com. You can comment on Spotify in the Q&A section, leave a YouTube comment, join our Discord and chat with fellow idlers and us in real time. Check out our merch store, which is another fun way to show your support. You can find details for everything on our website. That's idlingintheimpala.com. Want to fuel our Supernatural road trip? Consider joining us on Ko-fi for as little as $1 a month. We have perks to go along with different membership tiers, and we'd love to have you along for the ride.
Don't forget, though, you can always support us for free by liking, commenting, subscribing on YouTube, and following, rating, sharing on audio platforms. Engagement like that really helps us with the algorithm. All hail their benevolence. As always, we have the causes that we support in the description. So there are LGBTQ plus talking charities from me, there are mental health charities from Sandra, and of course, there are the main causes that we are always championing, highlighting, spotlighting, any other adjective that means to draw attention to. They are World Central Kitchen and Doctors Without Borders. Both of these charities are on the ground working in the Ukraine to help those still affected by Russia's unlawful invasion of the Ukraine, and in Gaza, which is in the crossfire of the war between Israel and Hamas. This is not political. It doesn't matter which side of these issues you stand on. We are coming from a purely humanitarian view here. There are people in the Ukraine and Gaza that are trapped, cut off from basic human rights like food, water, and shelter, and they're dying. They didn't ask for war, and we want to help the people risking their lives to help them. If you cannot or do not want to donate financially, that's absolutely fine. Just sharing links around social media helps massively to keep these issues in the public eye and get people in need all the help that we can. So with that, we will say thank you so much to Monica for joining us. Thank you for joining us in the back seat, and we will see you next time, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.